Welcome to my guitar gear. I know that a lot of people like to know what other people are playing, what kind of things they're doing. So I'll just give you an explanation of all the equipment that I'm using, the reasons I have stuff set up a certain way, and things like that. So here's my stuff. The first guitar is my acoustic. It is a Taylor 314 series acoustic guitar. I'm using Martin Marquis strings on it. I'll post a link to the products that I use. Again, it's a Taylor 314 series. I used to play on a Takamine. I still have it. It's a great guitar. However, just the Taylor, a lot smoother playing action, great sound. I just really like it. The capo that I use is a Kaiser capo. I'm sure you've seen a lot of this kind of capo. There are some other kinds of capos. I've not had really great luck with other ones when it comes to holding the guitar in tune when you capo it. I'm also using a humidifier that covers the whole sound hole. Out here in Arizona, we have, well, it's really dry. I think we had 2 days where our humidity was at 1% this year. So really dry climate. So the humidifier is an absolute must for acoustic guitars in Arizona. This is the tuner that I use. It's a Korg chromatic tuner. The reason I have one of these instead of a pedal tuner is because we do orchestra every year for Easter, and I just like to be able to have a tuner to use all the time, and that's a great little one. Fits in my guitar case. My electric guitar, this is my dream guitar I got a couple years ago. It's a Fender Strat USA Standard, so it is a USA Strat. I'm using D'Addario XL strings on it. Again, I'll put up a link for it. And I actually modified this guitar. One of the things that I did, I'll show you down here. I did a volume pot mod. You'll hear that volume pot or tone pot word used. It's short for potentiometer. It's just basically what controls the volume and the knob, basically. But the volume pot knob, what I did is I wired a cap and a resistor in parallel on the pot itself, and what that does, it's also called a treble bleed mod. What that allows me to do is I can turn down my volume a little bit and not lose the treble, and I'll show you exactly how that works in just a minute. My tone pots, I rewired these. Normally they're wired to like the pair of pickups. What I did is I went and rewired this tone pot is wired up to my neck pickup, and this tone pot is wired up to my bridge pickup. What that allows me to do is control the timbre of these two pickups, which they tend to be kind of harsh, especially this bridge pickup. I'm able to roll the tone back a little bit so it's not quite as harsh of a sound. I most of the time play in this position, which is the neck and the middle pickup. That's most of the time what I play on. And then, so those are my guitars. My effects pedal, I use the Pod X3 Live. One of the reasons we use this is because at our church we don't use any amps. So the fact that this does amp modeling is a huge benefit. Also, it's got a lot of other sweet features from the Pod Farm plugin, which I use for a lot of our recording stuff, and then just the ease of being able to edit and adjust and change things. We actually have 3 of these all together at the church. We have my personal one, and then the band has 2 that we rotate through our different guitarists. So we've all got a pretty consistent sound. It's not necessary, but it is nice, especially when like my guitarists are really great. They're just not what I'd call connoisseurs of tone, so they're not sitting there tweaking with their box of pedals trying to get just the perfect sound. They definitely like tweaking with these pedals a little bit, but the nice thing is when they come back every week, they got kind of the same settings. Also, I've got my picks. For whatever reason, people are intrigued with picks, what picks people use. So here I've got a Dunlop Tortex, 0.73 millimeters. This is what I use for my electric guitar. It is stiff enough to give me some bite, but it's not like a super hard pick. Then for my acoustic playing, I use the Dunlop nylon type picks. These are the 60.60 millimeters. So those are my picks that I use. And now I'm going to show you some of my sounds. I've got sounds that I use specifically for certain songs, but I also have a handful of patches that that are kind of my standbys. So I'll show you those kind of standby patches. One of the things I want to show you is when you put your cord into your guitar, it's good to wire it like through your strap. I cannot tell you how many times I've stepped on my cord and yanked it back, and this way it doesn't break your jack or pull it out and then you lose your sound. So I always do this. I always teach any new guitarist that's playing up here with me to do this. Okay, so my pedal, I'll explain some of these patches here in a second. I'll show you the outline of them in Gearbox, which is Line 6's software editor for the pedal. The main patch that I use is, I just call it a general distortion. Again, I'm using my bridge and middle my neck and middle pickups, and it's got a little bit of a delay on it. I use this for so much stuff. Pretty much anything that needs a distorted guitar on it, I'm using this general distortion. It works really good. It sounds great when you're playing it in the open position, but it also just it sounds great when you're just rocking out. So here is where this volume pop mod comes into account. Let's say I've got a song that goes from slow to really, really heavy, but I don't want to be sitting there dancing around on my pedal to make the changes. So what I'll do is I'll roll my volume back about maybe halfway, and I get a really nice clean sound, like I'm giving you my heart and all that is within. I surrender. But I just bring that volume back up, and it's this big, just a big fat sound. So it's really great to be able to go from to a little bit more, to a little bit more. So that's why I did that mod, for that specific purpose. And when I lead from electric, this is really helpful, because when you're leading, you're thinking about singing, you're thinking about all these other different things. So it's good to not have to worry about dancing around your pedal to change sounds up. The other patch that I use is a swell patch. We call it Plexi Swell because it's a Plexi Variac amp is the modeled. But we use this for any of our swell parts. So if you want to kind of make your guitar sound a little bit like a stringed instrument, you just pluck the note, use your volume to fade it in. It also works really great for maybe a really mellow song kind of lead line. If you're trying to play quietly. So there's a lot of things we can do, but those are kind of my two main sounds. I use all sorts of different stuff. If I want to play something bluesy, I've got a patch that I kind of emulated off of John Mayer's Gravity sound. So if I just want to play something blues. All right, here is the interface for the for Gearbox for the Line 6 pedal. First here we've got is the general distortion. Start just from the beginning. If you think of this in terms of a kind of a chain of command,
Right here is where your guitar would go in, and it goes through the gate and then through all those other things. Great thing about this program is you can move these pedals around and change their position in the signal path, which can change a lot of the way that it sounds. Anyway, so we start with a gate. We use the gate so that our guitar is not buzzing or making noise when we're not playing. The amp I'm using here is a Plexi Variac 1968. Cabinet that I'm using is the 1968 green 4x12. This is a model after a British cabinet. And then we're using modeled 57, SM57 Shure on axis. And this thing does a great job of modeling what that setup would actually sound like. It's really great. This is one of the things that Line 6 does really well, is models these amps. So they basically put the amp in a room and basically make their equipment sound just like it. You can adjust the amount, like the distance that your mic is from your cabinet. Compressor, I love the compressor. It's got a lot of different uses, but the main use for guitars is it helps give some sustain to the sound. So to get a lead line, a single plucked note to sustain longer, you don't have to like crank the gain way up and have it be this really gnarly in your face guitar sound, unless that's what you want. But generally in church we don't want that, but we do want it to sustain, so I use compressor to accomplish that. The EQ curve, because I play single coil pickup guitar, so they don't tend to be as full from a bass standpoint. So a lot of my patches have the bass boosted a little bit. If you're playing on a humbucker style pickup, you're going to want that bass turned down a bit. The delay, almost all of my patches I have some delay on them. And I say almost because I'll show you one in a minute that doesn't. But the delay just helps add some life, some fullness to the sound. Generally, I have it set at 370 milliseconds. That just gives it some body and some life, and it's not so loud that it needs to be stuck to the tempo. It just gives it a nice sound. Then we've got our Plexi Swell. This one has no gate, and the reason for that is because we're talking about a really finesse kind of sound, and we don't want it to suddenly appear. We want it to kind of gradually come in. We don't want it to suddenly start making noise. The amp we're using, again, same thing, 1968 Plexi Variac. Almost all the same settings, except that our gain is down quite a bit. The compressor, again, helps with sustain. The EQ, you'll notice I've got the high turned down quite a bit, and the reason for that is because this sound tends to get a little harsh, a little shrill up in the higher registers, so I brought that back to kind of smooth that out a little bit. The delay, we're using a little different delay on this one. We're using an analog delay with modulation. You'll notice the time is set quite a bit longer, we use this one, that modulation gives it a little bit of an ethereal sound, so when I pluck it, you notice it kind of detunes a hair, and that just gives it a little interest. I really like it. That combined with this cavernous reverb, that's a Line 6 reverb, the combination of those two things helps the sound to carry. So when I'm swelling it in and I pull the pedal back out, there's still sound continuing on. This is a really, really versatile patch. I love using it a lot. And finally, we've got our gravity patch. Again, this one, gates back on. I don't want to make any extra buzz. The amp we're modeling, CC 1967 double show. The cabinet's a Line 6. I basically just played around with a bunch of different settings and found one that I thought sounded similar to that blues sound that John Mayer uses. EQ. It's kind of a fairly flat EQ. I tweaked it a little bit, just trying to, again, emulate his sound. This modulation, I'm using a tremolo. I don't tend to use a lot of modulations and stuff like that, but for this one, the tremolo is a big thing. It gives that warbling kind of sound to it. This one I've got no delay. It just wouldn't sound right. You definitely want a clean sound. You want it to not continue on a whole ton. And then reverb, we're using a Lux spring reverb, which is really what gives it that signature sound. If I were to pull the reverb out, it would sound like this. It sounds alright when I play, but then I stop, it just loses that kind of that bluesy sound. So I will make all the patches that I've talked about downloadable. You just go below the video, you'll be able to click on them and download some of these patches, the general distortion, the swell, the gravity patch. I'll try to make them backwards compatible as much as I can. Again, I'm using an X3 Live. I'll try to make them available for the XT Live. If you have the newer pedals, the HD3, HD4, HD500, hopefully they'll be compatible with those as well. I'm not super familiar with those ones yet. But if you're using a Fender style, like a single coil pickup, like a Fender Strat, a Telecaster, anything with a single coil pickup, these sounds should work really, really well for you. Now, if you're using a humbucker style pickup on your guitar, either Gibson, an Epiphone, an Ibanez, Gretsch, any of those kind of guitars that use humbucker pickups, you're going to find that you're going to probably need to turn the gains down a little bit on the amp. You may want to turn the bass levels down because they tend to be a little beefier kind of pickup. So there's a couple of kind of things you're going to need to adjust slightly to make it work for you. I hope that these resources, these patches, as well as this video has helped you refine your sound a little bit more, understand more of what I'm doing. And if you have any questions, feel free to click on the Q&A page and ask me any kind of questions you want, whether it's what's this part of your equipment do, or if you just have a general question on some of these patches. I hope that this will bless your ministry, and I pray that God blesses your weekend services this week. God bless.